it was a really watershed event for Slovakia in the Slovak history. This year we celebrate 20th anniversary of Slovakia joining both NATO and also EU. First we joined NATO in March, and then on 1st of May 2004 we joined the European Union. From the point of view of people and the direct impact on people, of course the joining European Union was much more important because of the direct impact that people could feel literally on their wallets and on their bank accounts, because joining European Union meant increase in the economical strength of Slovakia, and also in many other areas, areas such as a social area or area of improvement of infrastructure, investments, foreign investments, but also investments by the European Union. Also it meant arrival of new businesses from abroad. Slovakia has one of the biggest production of cars per capita in the world, actually, because we have 6 now big car companies that came to Slovakia and opened their production facilities in Slovakia. So it was connected also with this. However, what I would say was the most important was that Slovakia did this kind of a strategic step and decided to belong to the West, to the Western modern democracies, and it also consolidated Slovakia's not only foreign policy belonging to the West, but also certain specific standards that were also felt by the people. And I mean, under these standards, I mean, for example, the rule of law, the justice, that people can trust the justice and the institutions, but also benefiting from higher standards of living, higher ecological standards, higher standards for example, consumer goods. There is a pressure on the producers to produce higher quality of goods, food, and that also reflected on well-being of the society. So overall, this was a really huge change for Slovakia as a society, but also Slovakia as a state, from the economical point of view, but also from the societal point of view, ecological point of view, and many others. So really a huge difference.
Tell me, please, when the state became a candidate at the EU, how important was the fight with corruption, and what were the steps which Slovakia made in that period of time?
Yes, well, we will have to go a little bit to the history. So Slovakia's path to the European Union was, compared with many of the current candidates, very quick, to be frank and honest. Slovakia applied for the EU membership in 1993, so immediately when it became independent from Czechoslovakia. But then we had kind of a rough 90s, we call it rough 90s, when there was not that well democratic standards obeyed, rule of law was very weak, economy was in tatters. And this lasted until the year 1998 at least. Then after the elections, there was a new government that decided that Slovakia needs to join European Union. And basically within 6 years, they managed to deliver on the promise. So they had to do really lots of reforms. Many of them were very painful because, as I mentioned, the economic was in tatters. Privatization was really wild, so most of the companies and factories were basically robbed by people who didn't care about well-being of the people, but just enriching themselves. And the government that was in power between 1993 and 1998, they were thinking about Slovakia as a kind of a neutral country in the middle, like a bridge between the East and West. Somewhere in the middle. So there was not this kind of a strong and firm anchor. We want to belong to the West, and therefore we do everything possible to to achieve that goal. But the government that came after elections 1998, they set this NATO and EU membership as their strategic goal, and they really did everything possible. And within the 6 years, they managed all the reforms. especially in an economical area. Those were very important because Slovak economy was very weak, and we needed to fulfill the criteria in order to be able to actually survive the free market and everything. The situation in Moldova is currently a little bit different because you already are associated country, and also you have access to through the DCFTA to the free market to a certain degree. So you have kind of a gradual preparation for joining common market, etc. Slovakia didn't have this. We were basically thrown into the water, but we had these 6 years to prepare as well as possible. And when I hear to the evaluations of most of those people who were responsible for preparation of the country, they say that the preparation of the economy to basically withstand the joining of the free and joint market, that was the biggest challenge. Then the clearing of the banking system, that was the second challenge because banks were really in bad shape. And yes, also fight with the corruption and improving rule of law, because until 1998 there was a strata of people or a certain number of people who thought that they are above the law and that they that they are untouchable. We can call them oligarchs or whatever. They managed to get extremely rich during the privatization phase, when most of the Slovak economy was basically turned from the managed or organized economy, state-run or economy, into the private economy. It was the quick change from 1989 until 1994-96, when the Slovak economy turned immediately to the private hands, and it was connected with huge corruption, with huge misuse of power, misuse of judiciary, misuse of even secret service, really lots of violence because of mafia that was operated here.
And they put the resistance. The resistance
Yes.
They also don't want to leave the system.
Yes, exactly, and that was one of the many conditions was the rule of law. So after 1998, the government had to also change legislation concerning the judiciary. They had to basically build many of the court systems anew. They had to basically renew the police force, clean it from rotten apples. Also, the same goes with the secret service and other institutions which were responsible for the rule of law, including prosecutor's office. I mean, not everything was pinky and nice, but they managed to a certain extent to improve this well enough that it was approved by the European Union that Slovakia can join European Union based also on the evaluation of the rule of law back then.
In that period of time, and now we know what is happening with the Slovakia's prime minister and so on. But in that period of time, does people from Slovakia put a resilience against the disinformation which were coming from Russian Federation, or Russian Federation in that period of time? They didn't try to.
That time, Russian Federation was not that strong factor, because let's remind ourselves that it was the 90s. Until 1998, of course, Russia was playing a certain factor, but still, it was very much weakened itself from within. So basically, the strongest Russia's kind of influence operation started way later than we were already in members of NATO and EU, thankfully. Because if we compare it with current situation, we might have been in a much worse place had Russia been stronger back then than now. But we had to face with some of the malign propaganda and some influence operations from abroad, but it was not such a strong factor as it is, for example, now. back then, in those years, 1994, 1998, Slovakia was called the black hole of the Europe. So as if there was a big gaping hole in the middle of the Europe. Slovakia was even offloaded from among those candidates for the NATO accession. You know, our partners, our closest neighbors, Hungary, Poland and Czechia, they joined NATO in the year 1999. Slovakia was not prepared back then, so it was told that you have to wait, and we joined NATO later in the year 2004, just 3 months before joining European Union.
Tell me please, how does Slovakia manage to convince the people that the country should become a member? Does in that period of time people were people convinced about this value, about this integration?
Yes, there was a huge support actually for Slovakia's EU membership. I think it was because of the very bad economical situation and social situation which was in Slovakia during the 90s, and they saw their neighbors in Austria, for example, as a long-term candidate country, how the situation is economically better there, for example, and they wanted to belong to that more profitable, more economically stronger and richer Europe. So the support was really high. We had to have, of course, the referendum about joining European Union, and it was the only referendum that was successful in Slovakia, because we have a clause in our legislature that at least 50% of people, 50% of voters, have to come to cast their votes in order referendum to be valid. So we had 52% people coming to the polls, and out of them, nearly 93% said yes, we want to belong to European Union. So there was a huge support. It was built by the political elites, so they were working on this. They were really talking with the people, explaining, and there was a broad consensus that Slovakia needs to belong to the European Union and to the West. Also, the civil society and media, they played a huge role in this effort, and that's why there was such a huge support. But initially, I think it was based on the willingness of or people wanting to belong to the West and to be part of that more economically stronger and richer part of Europe.
And as I understood, this referendum made at the end of the process of negotiation.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
not at the start.
No. At the end, yes. It was just very before joining the European Union. So we needed confirmation by the referendum that we are joining European Union. It is written in our constitution that for this kind of changes we need a referendum. And it was very interesting that in the very last day before the elections, all political leaders, even those from opposition, they joined together and they were marching through the Bratislava. It was even funny seeing some of those politicians who were clearly pro-Russian. Even back then, they were pro-Russian, holding the balloons with European flag on it, and then they were sitting in a cafe and discussing, and the journalists, they were making photos of them, and they were all like supporting, because even those from the opposition, they understood that even their voters, they want the country to join the European Union, so they could not go against their own voters. So that was an important factor.
Yeah, Moldova has a referendum on 20th of October,
yes.
And this referendum we are doing at the start of the negotiation process. We hope that on 2030 we will become integrate. But tell us please, what were the lessons learned in this process of integration, and what should Moldova not to do in this process? Okay,
the first and the foremost thing when thinking about Slovakia's path to the European Union was that key strategic decision. It was a political decision. We want to belong to the West, we want to belong to the European Union, and we do everything politically towards that goal. Because really lots of those economical reforms or social reforms, they were not very easy for people, because it meant for a short period of time some decrease in their economical results. People could feel it on their pockets. Some of the things needed to be done. Some money needed to be invested, for example, to save the banks. So they had to put huge amounts of money that increased the debt of the state, of course. And so there were lots of things that were connected, and some of those reforms were really done really quickly, and it had impact on people. But since people were kind of explained that, okay, we need to do this because we want to join European Union, and then there would be the increase in the living conditions for everybody, every inch of you, and people first of all believed it, and then they also supported this government, because remember the process started in 1998. And then there were another elections in 2002. So, and the coalition that was doing the reforms, they won again the elections. They remain in power, and then they had a chance to finish the reforms and then join the European Union 2 years later in 2004. So that was very important also for them to persuade people that yes, some of the reforms we need to do are difficult, and some people might even lose on this. But then with joining European Union, most of the people and most of the country will benefit from it, and it indeed did. So since then, Slovakia's GDP increased almost 100%, so twice as much as before. Slovakia is receiving direct payments from the European Union, from the cohesion funds, around €1 billion a year. So over those 20 years, it was €24 billion that went only through the cohesion funds. That means around 80% of Slovakia's investments into, for example, infrastructure, so like refurbishing roads, refurbishing railroads, building the new roads, it's coming actually from the European Union. So most of these investments are going there. Then second, our farmers, through the common agricultural policy, they are receiving direct payments for their farms and for their production. That is also important increase. But the biggest impact was the joining of the common market, European market. From the market that was 5 million people, we jumped into a market that is around 500 million people. So it meant, at the beginning it meant, of course, that lots of products, they flooded Slovakia. But then, so it had first some negative impacts, of course. But then the Slovak producers, they also managed to adapt. They understood the market, and now it is much more balanced, the exchange. For example, most of the Slovakia's export is going to the EU countries, like nearly 80%, 84%, 85% of the Slovakia exports going into the European market, and only remaining part is going to the world, basically. And even from those 16%, a lot is going to the near abroad, like the Balkans, Moldova, Ukraine, of course. So that's the important factor. And one very important factor from the economical point of view was also the financial stability, because before Slovakia had big, state debt, and payments for the state debt were really high. We were borrowing from the international monetary markets with a really huge margin, but this decreased significantly. So now, as members of the European Union, we are borrowing money cheaper, so to say, on the monetary markets. And at the same time, Slovakia fulfilled criteria in the year 2009 to join the euro. So we have euro, so that also gives our monetary system a certain monetary stability. So since 2009, we are paying with euro. Of course, for people, a very important factor were also freedoms of movement of people, capital, and also investments. That meant that people can travel freely, they can work abroad, students can study abroad. Over those 20 years, over 46,000 students joined the Erasmus program and studied abroad. And so that was also quite important boost in the quality of life of people. And so those were some economical changes that kind of were connected with Slovakia's joining EU.
What about salaries and pensions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, there was a significant increase in salaries and pensions, and also up until recently, of course, there were some economical turnouts. Like in 2008, there was a financial crisis, like global financial crisis. It affected also Slovakia, but in overall, it was increased by 75% in salaries and also pensions compared with joining the European Union. And of course, also prices were increasing. But as I said, the salaries were jumping quicker than the prices. But of course, there are periods when prices are and inflation is quicker. Like at the moment that we have last 2 years, of course. And now the inflation is significantly higher than before, but salaries are slowly catching up, and hopefully will catch up further. So there was increase also in income of people, and they can feel it also in their salaries. Another important factor was also kind of a raising of the salaries or not only salaries, but the economical productivity of Slovakia increased, and at the moment is around 84% of the European Union's average. So the richest parts of Europe, if you compare it with Slovakia, so Slovakia kind of managed to increase this economical efficiency towards like over 80% of the average of European Union, which before it was below 40% or even less. So that was also quite important. There is expected increase in this increased economical parity with the more richer parts of European Union in the coming years. And it is expected that Slovakia should gain upon the European Union, and then actually it will flip from the net receiver of EU money to net payer, of course. But that's the goal. That will mean that we will be so well off as the rest of the Europe, so we can be the donators and not only those who are receiving the money. When the reform started to work, that's actually also that was also a narrative used by the government to explain the reforms, that we are doing these reforms for ourselves in order we are living better and higher quality foods, products, goods, better standards of living, better rule of law climate, better courts, etc., lower corruption, etc. That we are doing these reforms for ourselves to increase our well-being, and while doing that, we are also meeting the criteria needed to join European Union, and that's why we will be allowed to join European Union. So some of the impacts were felt immediately after reforms were adopted. Of course, some, especially those economic reforms, they need some time until the economy adapts to them, until there are some benefits that can be visible to common citizens, like in their wallet. So some reforms take some time, others are much quicker with the impact.
And tell us, please, you told to us about the export and about the economical situation, but how does Slovakia manage to attract the EU investments? As you said, now Slovakia has, it's one of the biggest country who is working at the automotive,
yes, car producing countries. Well, yes, that was one of the direct impacts of joining European Union and also NATO. That's important to stress, because NATO is kind of a security guarantee that this country is safe enough, we can invest there. Because, you know, Slovakia it's kind of on the edge of the Central Europe, bordering Ukraine. Ukraine in the 90s was also kind of a territory of wild territory, let's put it that way. So the investors, they wanted to be sure that if they invest, that there will be safety for their investments. That was one part. Second part, European Union membership. Investors wanted to be sure that the same standards apply in Germany and they apply also in Slovakia. That is the second dimension. And the third dimension, very important, rule of law. They wanted to be sure that their investment in Slovakia will be safe also from the point of view of judiciary and rule of law, that if somebody is trying to rob them, that there will be a police and prosecutor and judges working in order to fix the problem, and they will not lose their investment. So these three factors were very important in order that they felt safe to invest. And they came quite quickly after we joined European Union. First, especially the automotive industry. First was Volkswagen, then Peugeot, Citroën. Later came Kia from Korea. Now we have also Volvo and Land Rover, and there are some others that are planning to open. But it's not only about these car factories, because with them it's connected lots of sub-suppliers. And those are Slovak companies, smaller companies that are producing some car parts, and these big companies, they are basically buying those car parts from them, because basically they are just assembling the cars. But many of the items, many of those parts of the car, they are being produced by smaller producers, either in Slovakia but also in abroad. For example, we are importing some things already from Serbia, because some of the producers, they move their factories to Serbia because of cheaper labor work, of course. So it has benefits and also disadvantages. But yes, after joining European Union, there was really like a huge influx of investments, not only car industry but also electromotive in the industry. Samsung, Sony was here for a certain period of time, and other companies that were either connected with the automotive or not connected with automotive at all. Just they decided that they will produce here. Samsung is producing here, for example, TV sets. So if you have Samsung TV set, there is a good chance it's made in Slovakia.
And these investors are coming when they are sure that law is working.
Yes, of course, because this quality of law corruption and rule of law, that the police will be doing what they are supposed to do, that the prosecutors will be doing what they are supposed to do, and that the courts are doing what they are supposed to do. That's important for the investors, because they are not afraid that their investment will be stolen or misappropriated, or somebody will steal material from them, or I don't know, products.
How does at the moment Slovakia fight against?
Yes, the disinformation increased over the past, let's say, 10 years. After 2014, definitely we can see a strong peak or increase in disinformation concerning many areas of life, including European Union actually. So disinformation against European Union, and that means that there is a small but slowly increasing number of population that is thinking that okay, European Union is maybe not so great. It's still very small minority in Slovakia, but there is this kind of minority, and some political parties are trying to use these sentiments and even further fuel those sentiments, unfortunately, which in my opinion can kind of blow back and come back to hurt us. What the state is doing at the moment against disinformation, unfortunately I have to say very little. Up until September last year, we had a very good system of coping with the hybrid threats. We had a couple of state institutions that were responsible for coping with the hybrid threats and disinformation. Those hybrid threats units were at the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and at the Office of the Government, and they were working together to counter various hybrid threats that were threatening Slovakia, because hybrid threats are not only disinformation, but also cyber attacks, also some kind of influence operations, even strategic corruption, and these kind of things. So they were trying to work in sync and cooperated also with NATO partners, especially. Slovakia is also part of this EU hybrid center in Helsinki, and we have our experts there, and we were using also expertise from this center to cope with these problems. Also, Slovakia is part of the NATO Center of Excellence to counter disinformation, which is in Latvia, the Center on Strategic Communication, and we were benefiting from those experts and expertise. Unfortunately, after the change of government last September, the current government is not paying that strong attention towards hybrid threats, and especially disinformation, I have to say very openly. So we will see what impact it will have on security of Slovakia, because disinformation might have a direct impact on also other areas, societal areas, political areas, like increase, for example, of radical parties or populist parties. It can cause also increase in extreme right and extreme left rise, which we kind of slowly already can perceive that there is increase also on these extreme poles. So far slight, but there is. And yes, of course, this makes us more vulnerable also towards a foreign malign influence. Clearly, Russia is a factor here. Probably also China.
This disinformation from Russian Federation or is coming through television, through internet?
Mostly through social media and through so-called, they call themselves independent media, but usually those are like disinformation outlets which are operating on social media or social platforms. But they have like they mimic the television. Just they are publishing their things on YouTube, and so they are kind of mimicking the real media, which is making them even more dangerous, because some people, I mean, especially the older people, they are not aware maybe of these kind of tactics of the disinformation campaign, so they believe it. So I saw it, it looked like a television, I saw it on the internet, they were saying these things, so then it must be true. The Slovak televisions, and especially print media, I must say, they were trying, and they are still trying to cope with these hoaxes and disinformations. So there is still effort by the mainstream media, by the quality media to cope with disinformation, especially as I mentioned, print media. They are most independent, I would say, at the moment in Slovakia. So they are trying to cope with disinformation, because they understand that disinformation might have very bad impact also on other spheres of the society.
What about stereotypes? Because Moldovan people, through Russian propaganda and so, think that if the country will become a member of EU, we couldn't sell our roosters on the markets, let's say, or pork. We couldn't sell our porks on the supermarkets or so on. What about the stereotypes? How can we fight with these? And also about traditions. Do the European Union have a place for all traditions, for all countries?
Yes, of course. I mean, European Union is kind of a boasting that we are united in diversity. So each country, each culture, each nation, each ethnicity is bringing something specific to the united Europe. So that's first thing. Second thing, well, we have markets also here in Slovakia, and they are selling chicken there, also selling eggs, selling home processed pork meat, etc., etc. So of course it is possible. There are specific exemptions from the selling from the yard, so-called farmers can sell directly from their yard. That's how it's officially called here. So there are some exceptions. Of course, then there are also, if they want to sell it to supermarkets, there needs to be some specific hygienic conditions, of course, met. But that means that it is increasing the quality of the goods also for the common people, decreasing risks potential. So you need to take it also from this positive perspective, that it is increasing the quality of life for the common society, because they can trust that these products that they are buying in shops are safer for their health. Of course, there needs to be institutions that are controlling. There must be controlling mechanisms. So the hygiene organization responsible for maintaining hygienic and the sanitary and phytosanitary conditions on the market, they need to control it. So, and they need to be trusted, and they need to have some standards procedures, of course. So everything is about also about control and the way how the laws are implemented. Because we can have a great laws, but if they are not implemented properly, then well, they are useless. Sorry to say. But as to say about the diversity, Europe is open for diversity, and it should be kind of a diversity. I know that there are many traditional societies in Moldova, also in Ukraine, in Georgia. We see what is going on in Georgia, for example. Some countries are more conservative, some societies are less conservative. Slovakia society is also more conservative than, for example, I would say Czech or others. But we preserved our culture and our values even 20 years after being member of the European Union.
This means that our apple pie and our Mama Liga will survive.
Will survive for sure.
Thank you very much, and we are very honored to have this interview.